So what if you need a great synth sound, perhaps for your hybrid composition, but like me you have less understanding of how a synthesizer really works in order to get that real fitting and expressive sound? Let's take a look at Usynth by Ujam. Hi there, this is Sam with Second Tier Sound. Really nice to see you here. If you're new here, I create videos on how to orchestrate within a DAW, but also go a little bit deeper into how to really master your VSTs so you can get the best sound out of them. If that interests you, perhaps subscribe. But you can also become a patron in order to support me so I can create more videos, but also to get some MIDI files that I create for these videos. Anyway, I normally go for more of an acoustic sound in my orchestration, so why would I be interested in a more conventional synth sound? Well, the truth is I use synths quite a bit in order to enhance my sound landscape in my compositions. And I normally use a synth called Omnisphere by Spectrasonics, and I really like that synth. It's very complex, very thorough, and has a lot of great sounds. But the truth is that it also overwhelms me because I don't really have the deepest understanding on how to use a synth like that. And to scroll through all the presets, it can be very tiresome. So when I heard about this synth by Ujam called Usynth, that is supposed to be a lot easier in order to get the results you want very fast and very tweakable and much more control, I was instantly intrigued. So this might not be a video for your die-hard nerds out there who knows exactly how to tweak an FM synth and get all the exact results. This is a video for you if you're interested in how to get a synth sound fast without too much tweaking, but still feeling you're in control. So Ujam were very kind enough to send me a review copy of their Usynth so I could try it out. So let's start by just checking it out how it sounds. As of this recording, Usynth has 4 different modules that you can get. So let's take a look at each of them just by a simple song that I made. And I do want to say that the way I made the songs doesn't really reflect everything you can do with the synth, but maybe you can get an idea of what's possible. All the sounds are from Usynth except the drums. Enjoy. So the Deluxe module of the Usynth is geared more towards hip-hop, R&B, and neo-soul. But if you look here at the instrument set, you can see it covers quite a lot of bases, even though it's sounded geared more toward the styles I talked about. It has a lot of nice basses, really nice keyboards, you know, that sort of Rhodes sound, for example, great leads and arpeggios. So you can use it for whatever you like, but it's perfect for those genres that I just mentioned. So the core module is really what it sounds like. It's the perfect start-out synthesizer if you don't really know which one to get, if you just want to get one, and if you don't know how to specify. And this one has a great variety of sounds that doesn't really go into just one specific genre, but covers most of your bases, and it sounds really excellent. So it's a great recommend for a first choice. The 2080 module is a little bit more of a retro sound. You might wonder why the name. Well, we live in the 2000s and it does have a little bit of 80s feel to the sounds, which I really enjoy. If you look at these sounds here, you might feel like it doesn't cover all the bases so much, but first of all, I want to say that you can use almost any of these sounds for almost anything you like. But this one is also very inspirational. It has a lot of interesting arpeggios and patterns that give you some great ideas. So sometimes you can just try any of these sounds and it's like, wow, that was cool, and then you build onto that. Euphoria is great for that big dance, rave, techno kind of sound. And if you look here in the list, you will see that it has a lot of leads, like 60 of them. And they're very inspiring, and it gets you right into that feel if you want to create that sort of really dance kind of music. I don't know what to call it, I'm so old here. But it also has some other really nice sounds in order to get you going and really creates a big, massive synth sound. Then we have Caramel. You know, when I heard the name, I thought this is probably the synth for me, and I think I was right, because when you look in the list here, it has a lot of soft pads, and these are just perfect to create those big, lush, warm landscapes. You can do a lot of other things with it, but this is probably the least edgy and more warm sound. Caramel is really a fitting name for it. So this synth is so great that it managed to give me a haircut as well. Anyway, I had a blast creating these songs, and it was quite quick actually. And that should say something. Maybe you don't agree with my style of choice, but it was so fast to create, and for a guy that normally creates orchestral music and has little knowledge of synths, consider it. Anyway, I thought we should go a little bit more into detail and see how the instrument works. And maybe this will be more interesting for you if you work with orchestral music, because I wanted to show you how I work with this synth from the start in order to create a more hybrid sound. So here I have a very short, simple string example that by itself works pretty well. And so on. Quite a simple figure there. If you're a patron of mine, you will get access to the MIDI file so you can see how I created that. You will also get access to all the MIDI files for the synths. Anyway, let's move on. I like this, but let's say if you wanted to create more of a hybrid, a bigger piece, maybe more futuristic, then it would be perfect to have a synth in the background that makes a different feel. And there are many ways to do this. So let's just look at a few of them that you can do. And this you can obviously do if you don't have Usynth. So it's not just showing off Usynth, it's also showing what you can do to create a hybrid track. So I wanted to start with the bass, and I've done that here, Cinema Bass, and I've used the core in this instance. You can obviously try any of the other modules. Let's take a look at how Usynths work first. You understand what I'm doing. You can see here it's a very nice interface, it has nice shiny buttons, all kinds of stuff going on here. So let's start from the beginning and just talk briefly about each section. First here you have a sequencer, and you have a menu here of all kinds of different sequences, arpeggios and similar stuff. Sometimes melodies also that are very good for inspiration. You can turn it on and off here, and you can then scroll what kind you want here, and then what kind if you want 8th notes, 16 notes, and a few in between, and up to 32. You can also modify those notes here a little bit, the length, if it's swinging or not, what octave, and the pattern lengths, and so on. It's quite self-explanatory, actually. Then here we have the actual synthesizer. And this can be a little bit confusing because you do see a lot of presets up here, and you might feel like these are the sounds. No, these are presets, very good ones, but they're not the actual sounds. They are found down here. And if you click on this button here, you will see all the different sounds you can access here. Bass, they're grouped into different sections. So these are sounds that are just pure and they have nothing put onto them, so to speak. All right. So that can be a good way to start, actually. In fact, a pro tip here is that if you go in there and create your own flat preset, I've done that here, and I load it now, and then all the effects are pretty much off, no sequencer, so you can hear what the sounds sound like with no effects on whatsoever. Really good thing, because sometimes when you have a preset sound with all these effects, and you change to another sound, you still get all those effects applied, and then you actually don't know the sound you're listening to, if you understand what I mean. So I've done that now. We can see what it sounds like. I like that. That's a perfect bass sound for me. I will use that. And there's so many things we can do. But let's take a look here at the synthesizer. Here we have a knob, which I have actually routed to my controller here. Another good tip, so you don't have to do this with a mouse, because it's more fun if you can. And this dark, bright sort of sweep, you could say, it's just really essential to create more expression and aliveness in your synths. So this is so easy, but so important. And then we have also here a, what you call it, short and long knob. And this basically lengthens and shortens the sound. So we have very short here, and then we can have long ones. Very nice. You can also use during performances to get interesting effects. And down here, we see what we can do even more with the sound. This is how you manipulate the actual sound. Not really here. This is more of a finishing touch. If you want a little bit brighter, a little bit darker, a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. But here you can change the character. So, see, a little bit different there. Sweep. And legato. So we are a little longer. For example, if you want that, yeah? I'm not going to go with that this time. I want a bit shorter than that. So see, it's not a lot, but it really gets to what you want. You have control of the sound. You want this length, this short, you want to sound more or less like that. And then you have finisher, which are different really nice effects. And this is really icing on the cake. In this case, I actually want the sound as it is, but maybe I want a little bit of compression. So basically, this dial the sounds how much of that effect you want, and then you can modify it quite a bit down here. We have 3 groups of effects. Single, which is 1 effect, basically. Dual is 2 effects, and quad is 4 effects at the same time. And these are quite amazingly fun to try out. The names are pretty good. They do explain pretty well what they're doing, but otherwise just try them out and have fun. They can also be a little bit intensive in terms of effects. You know, they're quite heavy on your resources, so be aware of that. But anyway, so you choose the sound here, and then you can always modify it a little bit down here, and then how much you want. I do want to say the Quad Moonstorm is just fantastic to create really beautiful landscapes, and you can do that with almost any sound there. Okay, down here we have delay, which in this case I don't want. In this sound, so I'm going to turn it off. There's a lot of, I can show there's a lot of nice different delays here you can try. They're really fun. And also then the feedback and the rate, what kind of cue you want, if you want them 16s or triads and all that. And then we also have ambience, which is a reverb, or I should call it as reverb. And then we have a lot of nice, we have deep space, for example, really cool. Goes on for quite a bit, or just smaller ones. In this case, I'm not going to use a reverb either because I want a bassy sound. And the volume, obviously. Now, surprise, what is that? Well, if you click on that, everything that is selected to be on will randomize. So if you just click that one, you just get a random sound, maybe a random sequencer, random finisher, and you will just get a new sound that you haven't thought of. This can be quite fun if you just want to get inspired with something new. And then you can decide how much is going to randomize from the previous sounds. If you have a small, it's the little change, and if you want big, you get enormous change, completely different. Down here we have the key, and you can see as I hit these different keys. Now, if you turn on the sequencer, which I do want this time, you will see that something turns up here. You will see that it's quite similar to, for example, strings and drums by Ujam, if you've tried those before. So this octave you can't play, you actually just get different patterns. So here is the lowest note. You can go lower, but you have to jump an octave down. You can't see that because it's beyond the scope of this keyboard, but you can actually play lower than this. What do they do? Well, if I hold down the key here, now in this case, the arpeggio we have selected It's so simple that we won't hear any difference. But let's just take another one here. We could take a sequence maybe. And as you see, depending on the key I hit here, I get different patterns. So this is really nice. It creates a lot of variety very quickly. So you don't just have the same arpeggio all the time. I'm going to go back to this one because I want this sound for what I'm creating right now. Then you can also mute it. So if you hold it in, you can just hold it down and you don't hear it for that. And you lift it and it starts again. Now this one, you won't hear in this case. So I'm going to change back to another sound again. Let's just try another one here. If I hold this key, it will latch on to just that particular note and repeat it. Can be interesting sometimes. Then I can always speed up. And I can stop the sequence entirely. So very, very nice quick tool in order to get interesting variations so you don't sound the same all the time. Anyway, I'm going to go back to this arpeggio because that's the one I want. And I want sort of a bass line for my synths. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to record that line here. Now, in order to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm going to work with the sweep here. And if you're really good, you can do that in one take, obviously. So let's try that again. Now, you can obviously do that in any way you like. I usually follow the beat a little bit, but it just creates a much more interesting sound immediately. You could even, I guess, try the fast and slow a little bit. Let's try that. And that also adds an extra interesting layer. Now, I'm going to work with the expression a little bit here, which you can't see, but I'm basically fading it in and out. I'm using my expression wheel here. Let's try that. Just to get a little bit more variety. So not just the expressions, but also the sound itself. And I'm pretty happy with that. That works pretty well. We can add maybe a little bit more compression here, and we can work a little bit with the volume to make sure we have the right volume here. All right. So that's one very, very simple way to create a little bit of hybrid sound. But let's not stop there. Let's go further and create more of a landscape sound. So we need a pad this time. So I've loaded up another synth, and I did as before. I went in here and I went to user when I created a flat preset, and I messed a little bit with the sound until I found what I wanted. And I came up with this sound here. So what I've done here is I had quite a slow attack here, and I have meddled with these a little bit and find a nice compression sound. I have a little bit of delay and a little bit of ambience. It's really good for background. And this time I don't have any sequencer going on because I just want that pad sound. So let's see what we can record here with this. Let's go from the beginning. Yes, as you see, I actually did try to do the sweeping at the same time. See if it worked. No, I was lucky. There you go. Now we have a little bit of a spacey sound that adds some character to the whole thing, maybe a more futuristic sound. All right, but actually, let's add a little bit more synthesizers to this to fatten up a little bit. In this case, I did a little bit of a cooking show trick, so you don't have to see everything I do here, and this is the effect. These are quite simple chords. I'm not really adding too much. I'm just adding a chord that I like, and I work a little bit with the controls here. So it's not very difficult, but it does create a very different scene. Now, I do want to show one more thing that I like to do sometimes to create more energy to the piece. Same as before, I started with a flat sound, went in here to to the sound and found a sequenced super arpeggio that I really like. And I find a sequencer that works fine here, to a 1-bar arpeggio 2, then put on some delay, some ambience, and made a Moonstorm quad. So if you hit one key, goes on and creates a really lush background. If you go full on here, you see what I mean. Love that effect. Take it all off. There's still some delay going on. So we want a little bit of that. And I went ahead and recorded it. So see the results here. Now, that's quite a lot going on there, so you might not need all of that. It might be too much, but I just wanted to show you several ways of doing that. Just adding a subtle bass can really hammer it home in terms of urgency and rhythm. You can just add some space, which I did with 2 different synths there to create a thicker landscape, and then ultimately have an arpeggio that might not need to be super prominent, but it can add that energy into your composition that really creates that sort of future hybrid sound. So what do I think about Usynth? Is it good? Should you get it? Well, let's start with this. I normally, as I said before, use Omnisphere by Spectrasonics, and I think it's a fantastic synthesizer, maybe the best one out there. Anyway, Usynth is not going to be able to compete against Omnisphere, not in terms of features and possibilities. It's just completely different leagues. Does that mean that Usynth is not worth your time? No, that's not true at all. I think it's very much worth your time. If you consider the price, the accessibility, and the good sounds it has, it's really much worth your time, especially for a guy like me that wants a little bit quicker results and don't just want to dig down so deep in every detail all the time of the synth. I do that with my other instruments, but in this case, I just want something that works. And it really delivers on that. For me, this is the easiest synth I've ever seen, and obviously I haven't seen all of them out there, so somebody might say, hey, this is a lot easier. But personally, this is so accessible, I got it pretty much immediately. The sounds are good, the price is nice, the features are really what I need. It's all in your face, it looks great. So let's talk about what I think don't work so well and what can be improved. Well, these are nitpicks, really. But for example, I've noticed small things like when you get different patterns and arpeggios in one module. Why can I not use those arpeggios in another module? That would be really, really good. If I have, so for example, 2 or 3 modules, I want to be able to use certain patterns for one module in another module as well. So I think Ujam should really think about that, because it feels a little bit limiting actually. You can only do certain stuff. Also, you need a reset button so you can set everything flat, no effects on, nothing, just from scratch, because sometimes you just want to search for a specific sound and then mess with it. I came up with an idea when you create your own flat preset, and it works pretty well. You just load that and nothing is on. The reason why this is good is because let's say you load a sound and you say, now I want something else. Well, then all the effects that you turn on also get translated into that. And you might not hear the sound you're looking for because all the effects sort of interfere with that process. So a reset button would be really, really cool. I've also noted, this is not a nitpick perhaps, but the button or the knob where you turn from how long the sound is, if it's short or longer, it's a little bit of abrupt. It's not really that many levels. You know, you go from short and long suddenly, or from long to short. There should be a smooth transition there. I don't know why this is, maybe because they have only a few sounds loaded. Something that could be a little bit confusing is that when you turn on the arpeggiator, suddenly a part of your keyboard is captured and you can't move that field any up or down on your keyboard. So you feel like, oh, I can't play there suddenly. Well, it's not true. Those notes have just been moved an octave down, but that's something to consider because it took me a while to realize, okay, I can only play this low on the keyboard, I guess, because this section is dedicated to the patterns, but it's not the case. So overall, this is actually a great recommend. It's a fast workflow. It sounds really good. It's a very inspiring tool. It has a lot of interesting sequences if you don't know what to do yourself. You should be aware though, if you use them too much, you will start to sound like everybody else, but it can be a great kickstart in order. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. I might want to try that out. And also don't think that just because a certain synth is toward a certain genre, that you can only play in that genre. You can obviously do whatever you want. And another thing is that you can take any sound and move it everywhere you want. It can be a lead synth, just move it down, tweak a little bit with it, and you have a perfect bass sound. Or the other way around, take a low sound. Just because it says it's in the bass section doesn't mean it's only for bass. So that's something to consider as well. Anyway, I hope this was useful for you. I hope you understood if Usynth is for you or not. And I hope you also got an idea of how you can use it specifically in orchestrations, if that's what you're interested in. And I want to give a great thank and shout out to Ujam, who provided me with this review copy. It was very kind of you, and they're great to work with. Now, I do want to say again, if you want to support me and you're interested in this synth, you can always try my affiliate link below. It will help me out a bit. Now, one thing that is truly great about Ujam that other software companies really need to look into is that they give you free demos that are not limited in any way except time. They have sometimes 7 days, sometimes up to 30 days, and that is something that other companies really must look at because some of these instruments are expensive and you might not really know what it is exactly until you tried it yourself and then you bought it and there's nothing you can do. You can't return it if you realize that was not for you. So this is something that is fantastic by Ujam and should be supported and encouraged. So you've seen what I think about it, and hopefully my videos that go a little bit deeper will make you understand if these purchases are for you or not. But the best thing is to actually download the demo, check it out for yourself and see if it's for you. And if it's not, well, no problem there. Anyway, that's it for this time. If you enjoy these videos, if you want to support them, then hit the like button, subscribe, perhaps become a patron if that is beneficial for you, and let other people know about. Perhaps write a comment how you work with these things. That's it. Remember to compose and hope to see you soon. Take care.